What are you afraid of? Are you afraid of public speaking? Are you afraid of heights? Are you afraid of being alone? So today on Healing Streams, we're going to talk about how to overcome your biggest fears. Steps that you can take right now to figure out how to be free from the things that are keeping you from living your best life. Fears can be anything from being anxious about going to the dentist or bigger things like the fear of dying, fear of heights, fear of people, fear of being alone. So how do we overcome those things? How do we find a way through? Well, I'm going to tell you what I believe. I believe the first step to overcoming your fear of whatever it looks like, let's take fear of heights. I'm just going to be real here because I am afraid of heights. And the older I get, the more I am afraid of heights. So let's talk about how I can walk myself through this and you can walk yourself through it too. How will that be? Use your imagination because you already do. You already use your imagination to create this story that something horrible is going to happen to you. Because that's what we do with fear, right? Don't believe me? What's the first thing you do when you get a bad report from the doctor? Or you just go in to get labs? This is a big deal to me because I just recently closed down my practice. So I see the fear people have about getting labs. Sometimes that's just the fear of getting stuck. Sometimes it's the fear of what the lab is going to say. So they come back to me, and if I tell them that there's something wrong or off with their labs, they immediately, what do? They're dying. They're dying. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it was just your B12 is off and we need to give you some supplements. Nope, they're dying. You're going to go and Google and your imagination blows up on you. Why is it that your imagination is always pointed toward negative? If you are a fearful person, I guarantee you that your imagination is always in a negative space. For me, when I go to a place, like I drive on a road where there's heights, I imagine myself falling off. I imagine that the car is going to go off the road. I imagine what it's going to be like that my kids are trapped in the back of the car. And what am I going to do to save them? And what if I'm dead and they're still alive? And how can... It is insane. And it's because we have not trained our minds to use our imagination for good. I tell my kids all the time, your superpowers, your imagination is your superpower. Use it for good and not for evil, right? So the first thing I want you to do is think about that thing that you're afraid of. Step one is using your imagination and take that thing that you're afraid of and imagine it in a positive scenario. So for me, that would look like imagining myself on a high place and actually enjoying it. I did this once before when I was at the beach. Let me tell you a quick story. We went to this beautiful beach house. We were given a great deal on it, and it had a second-story balcony. Now, for those of you that have no fear of heights, that may seem like a big deal, second-story balcony. But for somebody that has a fear of heights, the second-story balcony bothered me. But what really bothered me was when my children got to the edge of that balcony, because my imagination says they're going to fall off. Well, I knew we were going to be there for 7 days. So you know what I did? This is how I overcame my fear of heights, or that height, in that situation. That night, I realized I was being insane, much with the help of my husband, who lovingly, gently told me I was being insane. But I appreciate it. even if it wasn't loving and gentle. So I was like, I'm not going to be miserable my whole vacation. And my kids loved it, and it was beautiful out there. So I spent several hours that night imagining my kids on the balcony, imagining us enjoying it, and telling myself, I am safe. And not only I am safe, but I enjoy this. I enjoy heights. I'm safe on heights, and I enjoy heights. So the first thing that you have to do to overcome your fears, step one, is imagine that fear and put it in a positive scenario. Put your fear of, let's think about, put your fear of public speaking. Imagine yourself speaking in front of a large group and imagine it being a positive experience. Put it in your imagination until you can make it a positive experience. Here's the thing. We tend to, when we imagine things and we feel that fear, we push it away because we try to be as far away from fear as we can. But if we will sit with that and understand it's just our imagination, it can't hurt us, and turn it into a positive. So when you first start trying to do this, you may feel the fear. But then what you need to do is turn it into a positive. If it's too big of a leap, imagining yourself enjoying the things you're afraid of, then start by just imagining yourself not being afraid and not being controlled by it. Right? So once you start that in your imagination, then the next thing you're going to do is be prepared. Be prepared. What does this look like? How can we be prepared for the things that we're afraid of? Well, it really depends on what you're afraid of. If we're talking about public speaking, then have your speech ready. If you're talking about going to the hospital and you're afraid of hospitals, then be prepared by being familiar with where you're going to go in the hospital, what's going to happen when you're there, why are you going there. The more information you have around a subject, the less fearful it is. I found this out when I was working as a nurse on the floor. People would be afraid of the procedures they would have to go and get. And so I would tell them what would happen every step of the way. I use the same technique with my children. If you have children that are afraid of things, especially if they're afraid of going to the dentist or going to the doctor or doing something new, even if it's trying out for a ball team or anything like that, you tell them step by step what is going to happen. So we're going to use our imaginations to be positive. We're going to be prepared. And then that will lead us to step number 3, which is be confident. All right? Be confident. Now, if you're not a confident person, this might seem like, well, that's easy for you to say because you're obviously very confident. Well, I spent a lot of my life not being confident, especially when I was younger. But you know a trick that I found? I found that if I would act like I was confident, even when I was afraid, I soon became confident in those situations. And even if you can't be confident in the situation, be confident in this. Are you listening? You are more than able to face anything that comes your way. You are. You have to believe that you're able to face it. So when you are working on this being confident, you will find that when you have gone through it in your imagination, the more you do that, the more confident you will be. The more prepared and informed you are about a situation, the more confident you will be. So step 3, confidence, is a choice, but it also comes from doing step 1 and step 2. So there's 3 steps for us. Let's talk about the next step, which is very important. If you are afraid, then just be honest. Be honest about your fears, but be honest about them without glorifying them. You can say to people, I'm really afraid of this, but this is what I tell my children. Say, I'm really afraid, but I can get over that fear. So we have to be honest. Be honest with yourself about your fears. Some people are afraid to admit their fears because they feel weak or stupid or ashamed. Let go of that. Everybody has fears. You want to unite a room? You want to find out what everybody has in common? Ask them to tell you what they're afraid of. Or just simply ask, are you afraid of anything? Are you afraid of public speaking? Are you afraid of going to the dentist? There's so many things that people are afraid of. We all have fears. It's what makes us human. It is part of it. So don't think that you're alone. So be honest about your fear, but take it one step farther. Be honest about your fear, but then be willing to say, but I am overcoming that fear. Now hear me. I hear you guys all saying, but I'm still afraid. You speak it out. You are overcoming what you are afraid of. Okay? So we're going to use our imaginations to face that fear and turn it into a positive light. We're going to be prepared. We're going to be confident. We're going to be honest. And here is the last really, really big tip if you're wanting to face your fears. Be okay with being imperfect. Embrace imperfection. Because you know what? I conquered my fear of that balcony while I was at that house. And I was able to enjoy that balcony with my kids and my husband. But when we went to the local lighthouse, I couldn't do it. I could not do it. It terrified me. I couldn't do it. So that could have made me feel like a total failure. That could have made me feel like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I got over this fear and I thought I was over my fears. And no. Oh, excuse me. Ugh. I could have felt like I was a total failure. But instead, I realized that I'm not going to be perfect. And there's always going to be new situations. But I can use the absolute same process to overcome any fear. And I know it seems simple. I understand that. And it seems like you will never get there. But I need you to remember this. You are bigger than your fears. You are bigger than your failures. You can overcome both. So let's go over the steps really quick. Use your imagination for good and not for evil. Be prepared. Be confident. Be honest. And be okay that you're going to fail sometimes. That's all right. Failing does not equal failure, like you are a failure. No, failing just means you were actually trying to do something. So the next time that somebody mentions failure to you, just point out the fact that the only way that you don't fail is by never trying to do something. And in trying to do something, you have already conquered and done more than most people are willing to. You'll get there. Just hang in there. Thank you so much for being with me today. I'm going to ask you to like and subscribe my channel if this has helped you in any way. I appreciate your support. God bless.